I have like two that I know.
Two cats.
Two cats. One is like at the street,
Aw.
outside my building.
Mm-hmm.
He runs away though. He's like, I can pet him, I can feed
Mm-hmm.
him, but when I try to grab him, he runs away.
Cats. Yeah, I know cats like that. They sleep in my backyard. So if we go out, they leave.
They're awesome.
Yeah, but with that said, everyone, we are live and welcome to another magnificent Terran Tuesday.
Go heal.
Today, we're going to poke and prod the mind of these magnificent published authors and see what we could learn about the craft of writing. See where their process begins, where it
Yeah.
starts, the fouls, the things they've
Asking
overcome.
questions. Write your questions in
Absolutely.
the chat, guys and gals.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, we talked about our writing styles and things of that nature, but I kind of wanted to get into sort of how you approach writing. What's your craft? How do you turn the craft into an art form, so to say? Your own personal approach. And why don't we start off with you, Black Knight, because you write in a separate language than you
Yes.
usually speak. So I'm very interested on how you approach that.
Well, as you know, English is my third language. I'm not like standing on my head and clapping my hands, saying that oh I'm like somehow special or something. No, it's hard. Um, it's still hard. It was like supremely hard when I began working, translating everything that I've already written from my from Bulgarian to English. And I made a lot of mistakes during the translation period, um, which I had to later correct. But the plus on plus side of this was the fact that it actually helped me improve some of the writing. Uh, as for how to elevate it to an art form, I mean, I haven't yet elevated it to an art form. Um, I'm trying though. Um, I have adopted a few, um, let's say, uh, ways of polishing things and perfecting things. They can never be 100% perfect, but you can make them much better and smoother. And the first way is to always have um, dramatic trick up your sleeve. Make sure that you plan something. I'm not talking about twists because I don't like overusing twists, but you have something dramatic happen, and uh, your first step is to set things up um, so that it enables you to employ the most in this case in the setting of your particular story, the most dramatic thing that you could pull up. And the second step is to set like a bit here, a bit there, like drop some crumbs, some clues to set it up better, and foreshadow just a little bit. And the last step is to actually pull the thing off, which sometimes you have to rewrite it, make sure that it's like you can draw as much of the energy that you could put out there in the form of this dramatic event.
Like a hook. Like you need a hook.
Yeah, it could be a hook. It could be someone is dying. It could be some like horrendous injury. It could be a mental injury. It could be a failure.
Hmm.
And it doesn't have to be on the side of the protagonist. It could be on the side of the villain. Um, you just have to pull it off. And I established a few of these early on, and I had some of the villains. That's why I a lot of my readers like the main villains in the Star Shutter series because they have suffered much um, by the hands of the heroes, and of course they have suffered because they because of their vanity, their obnoxiousness, their like you know, but your own heroes could also um, stumble into one of these dramatic scenes, and not because they have like some glaring faults. Not that they shouldn't have faults. They should have some faults, but because of uh, their qualities. And the a good villain can twist the qualities of the hero against them. So this is one of the ways that I managed uh, to entice the reader by showing them a dramatic event. And then first I set it up, I establish it, I foreshadow it, and then in the end I pull it off. So as you said, James, it could be like the ending hook of the story of the first chapter, let's say of the prologue, or it could be uh, mid-story. Something happens and it changes the course of the adventure and has like some of their mentors might die, or they it's like one of them is kidnapped, one of the heroes is kidnapped, and they have they're on a clock that they want to their plans pretty much go out of the window, and they have to
Hmm.
rush in order to save him or her because they know that they would be tortured or something. It's a um, and I will say it again. It's not like you do not have to
Yeah.
go for the most dramatic thing. You just have to measure it. That's one of the most important aspects of this. You have to measure it, and it has to fit the narrative structure of that story. Because if you do not measure it, you can make it too weak or too strong.
All right. Chat saying that you're coming through a little light on the audio.
Really?
Yeah. Let me see if I could possibly, if I could boost you here, maybe. 'Cause
Oh,
it
good.
should.
It's not just me. I'm not just not hearing anymore or something. Like
Strange.
I become I become worried.
Uh,
Okay, so I boosted you a bit. So hopefully that'll
Boost.
help.
Boost.
let's let me see. Microphone. Let's see.
Yeah,
Properties.
I boosted you up some there on this end. So
There's microphone boost. Okay, so I'll try to boost it a little bit from the Windows settings, and you tell me.
That's
Is it?
better.
Yeah, it's better. Okay.
There.
Yeah, just a little bit, 50, 60%, 70%,
Ooh, that's big.
maybe.
About right there, I think.
Okay, okay. Yeah, because I played with the settings when I was setting up the new headphones. I played with the settings,
Uh-huh.
and I might have like lowered the sensitivity of the microphone.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, when I tested it in Discord earlier and a few other apps, they everyone could hear me perfectly well. So it's it's StreamYard probably.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was trying to boost you on this end.
You did.
So it's
Yeah.
it's good. It's
But
good.
I have a question for you. What was one of the hardest parts of what's one of the greatest challenges you'd have to overcome in your writing process?
Well, currently or in general.
Well, let's say in general, from where you started.
In general, it was making sure that nothing is lost in translation.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
that was probably the major one, and the second big one was the constant fight with the different grammars and sentence structures.
Wow.
I might have mentioned that in an earlier stream. That was hard. Um, and the more sometimes like the more you try to fix something, the worse it gets. You kind of, instead of fixing it, you ruin it. And I had a period of like 2 years, almost 2 years, when um, the earlier drafts that I had were better than the last drafts,
Oh, yeah.
and I had to go back and use the earlier drafts.
All
So
right.
yeah,
Now, how'd you overcome that?
uh, by working 14 hours, 15 hours a day.
Oh,
All
my.
right. What were you practicing exactly during that time?
I was practicing mostly with trying to uh, stop myself from using different sentence structure, because
Okay.
that was one of the biggest issues, because if
So, okay.
you've not like you all of your life you've used one sentence structure,
Hmm.
you never and I still have some sentences um in my newest stories, where when I go back and I edit them, I notice.
Hmm.
Yeah.
All right. What's the difference between the sentence structures?
um it's inverted.
Huh.
You got an example?
Well, in Slavic sentences, you have this sentence structure where you can
Uh-huh.
you can put the adjective later.
Hmm. So that just kept coming up within the writing.
Yeah, yeah. That's
All right.
by the way, what's that noise that I'm hearing?
Is it mine?
I'm
Uh,
not sure. It's not coming from me.
Okay. There's like a little popping noise, I'd say.
Yes.
Yeah. It should show up. If it's crackling on mine, it should show up a little light sort of thing should show up
Okay.
around my
Well,
face.
Hmm.
all
Okay,
right.
but let me look for one of these, and
Yeah.
I'll read one to you, and you'll understand.
And understand then.
Let's see.
Yeah, because language can be very difficult, in between, especially when translating into English, which many people say is a bit of a Frankenstein language, but
It is.
apparently pretty good for writing.
It's lately I've been listening to like really short clips from this uh, English science historian,
Mm-hmm.
and he's talking about like the much older version of different words and even structures, sentence structures. They were like much older, and he's giving like Germanic words and
Mm-hmm.
Saxon words and Norse words and everything. And it's really interesting because when I studied, I kind of studied at first I kind of studied like the basic sanitized version, which we have
Yeah.
here, we get here, and it's from like really bland textbooks where you don't have the nuance of the artistic nuance of and poetic um, part of the language,
Mm-hmm.
which you kind of feel I felt robbed when I began to like study the advanced literature. I read some poetry and everything, and I felt robbed because they could have. I mean, nothing stopped them from adding like even just a little tiny bit, like a single couplet of single stanza. They could have, but they didn't, and I felt sad when I kept learning more and more. So I'll try to find you one of these sentences. I'll open one of the. I'll open one of the files, like the newer files that I have, and I'll look for them. Uh, there is no guarantee because I could have.
Hmm.
I probably changed them already.
No, okay, that's all right. That's all right. We'll maybe slip one in here later on if you could
Yeah.
find one. But we'll go
Yeah.
on to you, Snow. What's your writing process like? What were some of your challenges and what influenced them?
First of all, I have no idea what I'm doing. So we have to say that up front right now. I never thought I would write something like a novel. I've always been a one-off, do a poem really quickly or a essay of some kind. Usually it was nonfiction. I did write some journalistic essays and reports, investigative reports that I did, but they were very strictly pointed at a particular. Although I had a little bit, I know some people that I had a little bit too florid style for journalism because I love writing poetry, and I didn't care because I just wrote it and put it out there, and it got picked up by some majors, which was actually pretty good. But I did it. Had a tendency to read a lot of columnists when I was a child, also. And a column used to be a very short essay that might have a humor based episode or something. It was short blurbs preceding the blogs, and they had them in every newspaper. So I think that Irma Bombeck's the one that comes to mind. Dave Barry's another. That immediately they're short, usually an essay about a particular situation, something funny a lot of the time, or something that's very emotional. They have a tendency to shift quickly from humor to emotion, to tragedy or drama, and usually end on a high note at some point. And so, having grown up on that and having done that all my life, I was used to writing very short items. So what I'm doing writing novels, I almost have no clue. I did read a lot of novels. There was a period in my life where I was reading probably 3 books a week or more. And that was from the time I was in junior high all the way up to I would say, through high school before I got into college. And I had another explosive reading group that I did of fiction. But for the most part, I was actually a nonfiction reader. And so I was a little bit unusual in that sense that the fiction that I did read, I really loved. It was usually classics or Lord of the Rings, Robert Louis Stevenson, Conan. I read Robert E. Howard, and I read a lot of Westerns. But for the most part, most of my reading was actually done from a journalistic nonfiction viewpoint. So switching over to writing novels, it's almost been like an inspirational journey. Like I said, a lot of it had to do with, I guess, that maturity. And I'm going to say it honestly, we don't think of ourselves as growing mentally as adults, but we actually do. As I was trained and got my degree in early childhood education, one of the things we learned is that there are several stages of brain growth. And we have the first stage, of course, being in childhood. We have several specific stages going from concrete thought to abstract thought. And then we have those, usually the stages that we go through is pretty much, we think of it, and they used to say that when you were a young adult, you did all of your growing at that point. And by the time you were 25, you were really set in your place, that your brain didn't grow more. But here's the honest truth. There is an absolute creative spurt that happens after the age of around 50 to 55. One of the reasons that we see so many people, so many artists who really come into flower when they are after the age of 50 is because that part of their brain grows. It literally expands. And it's hard to describe because we don't think of our brains as changing shape for the better as we get older, but it actually does. That matter in the brain becomes deeper and more wrinkles. It has more fissures. And that's why you want to keep yourself growing as a human being, creatively and spiritually. You want to be able to continue doing that, because as you get to that point in your life, 50, it suddenly synthesizes everything you put into it. Prior to this, we're putting in information, we're getting those experiences, we're doing all those things, and we are creating. But there comes a point at about the age of 50 to 55 where your brain actually takes everything it learned and starts to not only process it, but create something new. Now, this is a very important stage of development, and I believe this is what happened with me, because where before I had always written very short things, and I had gotten pretty good at doing a hook for my journalistic work, where I would actually go in and make. I almost always attacked it from an issues point. There was usually an investigation, some sort of injustice or something, or there might be something tragic that happened, and I would point towards that and bring it to a place where we could take the viewer from a position of empathy, sympathy, or humor towards an actual ideal. And it would usually have an emotional hook that would go with it. Well, I was good at that. This suddenly expanded into where I could do it with a novel. It had to have a focus. I had to have something I was thinking about. Music helped me a lot because most of these scenes in Watch of the Damned, as I said, I've had visions of this. When I sat down and I wrote that first scene. You've heard me say it over and over again. I saw the last scene in my head immediately. I knew how the book's going to end. I already know, and it's set in stone. But these ideals in between are these little islands of all these scenes. And usually music has started that process for me. And so as a person who grew up with deafness, actually, for a long period of time, I was deaf until I was about 5, 6 years old. Music is such a thrill for me. I've never gotten past that point. The music actually provokes a visceral response in me. And I see things with it. When I see these scenes, usually the music creates a scene for me. That's why I love musical scores. I love the score, for instance, to, if you've ever watched Robin Hood, Korngold is the composer on that. He was the John Williams of his day. If you want to really hear a thrilling score, go and listen to Robin Hood. It is the perfect score because it creates scenes in your head. Well, I would listen to music, and whether it's a symphony, typically it's classical music, sometimes it's metal or rap or any other number of things. But usually there's a classical score that starts off, and I have this huge scene in my head, and I feel what the emotion is that I want to feel. I will see a brief, maybe less than a second or two of an actual action, but it is the watcher doing something. And he'll actually be in the middle of this fight or in the middle of something. And that's all I've got to begin with is just that song and that little brief snippet. Now, that inspiration, what it does for me is it actually sets free the brain. Now, I'll listen to that song maybe over and over again. And I used to do this as a child. I don't know if anybody else does it, but where you would listen to a song over and over again until your mom would be like, you're making me crazy, that sort of thing. And so I still do that as an adult. So fortunately for my family, I have headphones. And so I'll listen to it over and over again, and the scene will start to build. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm letting it, actually, there's a place where I say it's matured. It's like a piece of fruit, and you have to let it go there. So I wait until it actually gets to that point. I put it, let it mature to where it gets to a place in the scene where the entire musical score is filled out. One of the reasons this actually works so well with symphonies or with classical music or movie scores is because they are written around creating a scene in the mind. It's not just about the lyrics or about the way you feel. It's not about setting a stage for something that's happening in real life. It is setting a stage for a scene that is happening on stage or in a movie or in the listener's mind. And so even with ones that are not associated with movies, classical music is fantastic for this. So it will create, I will have from that little snippet that I had, this entire scene will grow. Now, once I've gotten it to that maturity, and usually this is an action scene, or maybe a romantic scene often, but it's an action scene. It has physical motion to it. And so after that scene is completely matured, I will write it. I don't write it until then. I absolutely let it go through the process of creating itself in my mind. Now, when I'm writing it down, I'm excited because I'm getting to relive it again. I'll usually put the music on in the background. I'll let it roll. I will go ahead and use that all the way through as I write this entire scene. And I keep on having it roll softly in the background until I'm completely finished. And it actually lines it out for me like a mind map from the first notes to the last ones. So that helps me write that action scene. But how do we tie it all together? And that's actually one of the most challenging things for me. Sometimes I have scenes that I've written that have been written for the last 2 or 3 years. And because of structure, because Watch for the Damned is complex in its structure, because it is a pretty much a 12-book series. I'm now on book 10 right now, and we're in the home stretch at this point. And because it's taken so long, there's so many threads and so many people, and they all have to come together. They all have to meld into this one scene at the end. All of it comes together, all these threads, all the different things. And I learned a lot from watching George R. R. Martin and what he did well and what he didn't do well, and how he worked his way around some of those complex scenes and factions, and how he was having trouble. And I tried to apply myself. That's not anything against him. If you love George R. R. Martin, that's awesome. He did do some things very, very well. And he did. He made a lot of money. And so I try to say, okay, how am I going to bring it all together? I know how they're supposed to all come together. I can see these threads, and it's like braiding a rope. It's really big. I have a thread over here, a thread over here, a thread over here, and it has to come together. So with these books being as complex as they are, those scenes can get written sometimes a year in advance. I've got a scene. Still hasn't gotten into that book yet because there's a faction, and learning how to introduce them properly has been really tough. I introduced one of my factions actually early on. I mean, it's been there. We've had hints all the way through the series, the consortium. Telling their story and actually meeting them has taken me almost 3 years. I've had my first scene. Some of the biggest ones have been written. I've been writing them all along. But when I tried to weave them into the story that I was currently working on, where the Watcher was in his continuity, where he was chronologically in the story, I was like, if I try to put it here, it's going to make things too complex. It's going to burden the story. It's going to make it too hard. So learning how to keep things simple enough that people can follow along, still foreshadow, and then saving this. So now I'm writing about the consortium. I have my consortium in there. It's the elite rulers of the survivor world in Watcher of the Damned, the ones who were mutated and evil, but they still have technology and they actually have that power. They're like wizards in their enclave in the fallen city of Houston, where the kudzu rises with the skyscrapers, and the earth is filled with these mutant mosquitoes, and they're traveling the bayous because the roads are clogged with vehicles that make it impossible for them to walk. And so we have this incredible story that's been written. I've had to be patient to say, I'm going to save it until the point where I can introduce it properly and my readers can love it and be completely immersed in it without having to go back and forth between different scenes too much. And we still have to be able to bring along the rest of the story too. So having laid the groundwork, I would say the most challenging thing for me has been continuity. It's making sure that scenes that I wrote 3 years ago aren't fallen behind, or didn't foreshadow something that hasn't happened yet, where you put a scene in and suddenly realize, oh, I said the name of a character who isn't supposed to show up yet. You have to go back and you have to weed that out. You have to make sure that nothing is in there that's out of place. So for me, continuity is the biggest thing, because when I write those scenes, they may be put in the little file for a year while I go ahead and let the story develop itself. But the scene is still there. The scene is still waiting. And I just have to make sure that it fits in properly. And that's probably been the greatest challenge for me in writing this series, because this series is a long series. There seems to be a trend towards that. We have two distinct trends going on right now in the indie space. One is novelettes that are easy to read, that you can sit down and love it, 2 or 3 days, boom, you're done. And that's actually a huge trend, because people want to be able to sit down and read something quickly. And then you have the binge readers. They're the people who came up and suddenly found themselves watching, Netflix, an entire 4 seasons of The Boys or something like that. They would watch the whole thing. And so those people are wanting those longer series. So this is what this is for. This is for them. I got encouraged to do that by Blaine Pardoe and several others, because I literally asked him, do I need to make this a 3-book series? They're like, no, go for the whole 18. Well, it's actually 12. It's going to be 12. And so I'm like, so good. I'm going to get finished with 12, we hope, or somewhere in there. I won't do 13. It has to be 12 probably, because 13 is an unlucky number. But I think that for me, having that continuity, and especially with a series this long and as complex with as many factions as it has, kind of like New Vegas, except it's a book. I think that that's going to be probably how the biggest thing, the biggest nightmare I have is that I'm out of continuity, that there's something glaring that somebody's going to find. They're going to go, wait, you introduce this character and he's not supposed to come on in until 2 books from now. Or you introduce a character and he's never mentioned again. That part I really worry about. And so I try to go back through my books and make sure that the continuity is there. And it is so hard.
It's super hard. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, have y'all ever had a trouble with that? Like with continuity?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Dude, for real?
Yeah. I've had that issue with my first short story series, which was 15 installments, 2,000 words each, and I forgot one character existed, so I had to go back.
Yeah. I had like I think it was in book 5, was it? Yes, in book 5. But it happened to me like earlier. But the most like the worst case of it was in book 5, when I was working on book 5, and I had already finished it, and I was about to, like, I uploaded it. it, and then when I uploaded it, something made me reread the last 2 chapters, like the end chapters, and all of my books, they end with a massive fight, like a huge epic fight. And I was like, wait a minute, something is bugging me. And just as you just spoke about it. So I went back there and I read it, and I saw that I've missed not 1, 2 characters.
Oh no!
I missed 2 characters, and I had to rewrite everything, almost everything. And it took me, I think it took me 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I went mad. I was like, why did I? And these days I have this like list. I make it on purpose. I make this list with all the characters, and I have these like stars next to them, asterisk. And if they don't have an asterisk, that means that I have not, like, I missed something. I missed involving them in a scene or something, and I have to. I watch. I know who is the titular character for the current book, because not all books have like all of them. They have all of them, but one or 2 of the characters are the so-called titular characters for that part, like that book. And I have to have them have more aesthetics, it's like to be more engaged in specific scenes and this and that. So now I have this list and I look at it and like, ooh, yes. So I don't miss anything. Yeah.
James, how do you do it? Because you've got all these short stories that you've written, and
Yes.
I know you've got
Do
worlds.
we have a list? Do we have a list, James, or something else like maybe a tab or something?
Well, I primarily just got a bunch of notes I save for
Yeah.
the more finer details. But whenever I got a particular story on like the whole, I guess what I'd call timeline, that story is sort of written as just a blurb. So it allows me to sort of fill it up as long as particular events happen near the core of the story to sort of keep the entire timeline moving forward, if you will. And it can be a little difficult at times because a lot of the stories, they don't seem like they're directly connected, and they may not be directly connected at first, but you sort of wait for like a season 2 or a second installment to sort of pieces them together, and they're all sort of supposed to eventually intertwine with an ensemble of characters taken from all the separate stories to go on one epic adventure, so to say, to wrap up sort of this gigantic story arc that I'm not sure when it's initially going to happen, as they're still having these alternate story arcs play out. But they're all sort of just going to combine together eventually, hopefully within the next 3 to 4 years.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
sort of why I'm writing these short story series, getting them out quickly, because all of it is experiment to try to get the stories out quickly, fashionably, in quality. You know, we want it to be consumable. Exactly. So a portion of it is about that efficiency.
This is the way. This is the way.
Exactly. And one of the hardest things that I have had to deal with has primarily been, I would say, probably I want to say quality control, because I had a very rapid release structure.
Yes.
And at first I started off with producing 10,000 word short stories a month, which was enough to write the short story, but not enough to sort of put it through the grind to get it to the quality I wanted. But for every single story, I've gotten closer and closer, just sort of sharpening myself up along the way. And I've come a long way since then. And now I got a pretty good methodology to deal with all these small things. But now I think the next big thing is to sort of produces works at a faster rate than I am, because right now probably for the works that are coming out for the next 2 months took roughly 2 months to create, and I want it to be closer to 1 month. Yes. So that's going to be the next big challenge. But you know, it's all sort of introduces separate challenges to shape us up a bit, get rid of those rough edges. But you know, I am a short story writer primarily, and just focusing on rapid releases, as well as seeing what websites and various platforms are out there that I could take advantage of. I was looking at Royal Road, but I decided less not to, because I'm more of like a weekly release guy. Spend no time writing out the entire story, then weekly release it. But Royal Road is much more almost like a pump and dump strategy, where they expect almost daily releases.
Oh, really?
From new producers. I believe one of the popular strategies to sort of get on their sort of up and coming artists lists was actually to produce 8 to 15 chapters of a story in one day, parsed out throughout the day, and spend the next 30 days releasing one short story every single day.
Wow.
And then they said you could slow down a bit and go closer to 3 to 4 days. I was like, yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of writing.
That's something that I could do, but I won't.
Yeah.
That's it's not going to be quality. That's
Yeah, I figure to take advantage of that, it's best just to already have a bank of already
Mhm.
produced stuff, because one of the good things about Royal Road is they do let you produce things that are already produced on other sites. You know,
Oh,
as
do they?
long as it's mentioned in there, as long as it's
Mhm.
mentioned in your release, things of that nature. So it's good if you have like a bank of work ready to go. It's a good place to re-release some stuff,
yeah.
get an extra audience going. So, but you know, I always keep my eyes out looking for other platforms and things of that nature, seeing what could work best for what I'm trying to produce, and not necessarily step away from existing platforms, just expand into
Mhm.
further
Mhm.
platforms when they
Yeah.
present themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
the digital publishing side is very interesting.
Yeah, and I think that actually, I've never thought of myself as that I needed to go become a writer. I've always been one since I was a kid. Since by the time I first really started, I've always been writing poetry, things like that, since I was 5, 6 years old. But I think that the that craft part of it, where you go out and you're going to take, you're going to go in and you're going to write this much per day, that is the path of the person who says, I want to be a writer, I want to go do these things. Especially when you're talking about what used to be newspaper publication, now it is roll road, digital media, things like that, where you're putting out some every day or every other day. The columnists used to do it where it was every day they would write something. Sometimes there would be a weekly column that they would have a week to go ahead and polish it up, but other times you're rolling it down. When you're doing journalistic work, so a lot of times there's something you get a lead, you go follow it, you go produce it, get it put together, get it in. But so I've never done the whole thing where it's like every day. Every day I write, probably almost every day. I think I do. But my goal, instead of being a writer, is to write the story. So my attitude's a little different about it, because if I was saying I need to go become a writer, I've got to go do this thing, and that is the way you become a writer, is you go out and you just keep pumping it out, keep putting out your best work that you can, but you go ahead and write and you put it out there, because otherwise nobody will ever see you. If you wait until you think it's good enough, your time may pass. So you need to go ahead and get that work out there. Go ahead and write. Go ahead and be who you are. In this case, for me though, because I have a particular story, I'm more likely to pull back on it. I will release. I've been released at this point. It's Geez, okay. So I actually first wrote the first words for Watcher of the Damned. I think it was 2018, and then wrote the whole first 6 books, then put them in book form. So they release in 2021, 2022, something like that. Um, and then but we have 10 books right now. So we've been over the target has been basically a book, more than a book a year when you're all putting it all together. But the last 2 books, because they were put together where they were actually written after the novels were created, the world was created, we actually have those books have taken me 3 years to write 2 books. So I felt like I took too long because people had like heart attacks and gotten wrecks, and people died, things like that. I had a stroke, but I still feel like I need to be able to keep up with that one a year. And I have to remind myself, writing the story is my goal, to get it done. That's an important thing. Where I'm trying to beat the Reaper here, where I'm not going to die before I get finished with it. I want to make sure that I have that series done, and I do have my writers picked out. So that way I can make sure that as long as I have my notes, I've already got an author picked out to finish the series for me if that should happen. But the point is to get the story done. So the expectation's a little different, as opposed to when you're doing digital. Like on Substack, I try to get something out at least once a week. I missed several weeks this last couple of months because we had people that were sick, and obviously something was going on with me. But so I try to get something out once a week, and even if it's just poetry or a little blurb. But my writing on the story, I almost exclusively put into the book itself. And then I have little pieces that I start releasing once I have it ready for publish. That I have an edit in that I know I feel is good enough, because the whole point is getting that story out in the most polished form I could have it. And as a result, that's made me, I don't know if it's really bad or not. I've been very close with my beta readers. I will have a beta reading pool of maybe 1 to 3 people. They're people that I trust that have already read the story. And then I have people that I'm like, gee, they'd be a really good beta reader. And then I'm like, no, I don't want them doing it because I want them to be my reader, not my beta reader. I want them to, I'm writing this story for them, and I want to make sure it's good enough that they love what they read. And so my beta reading pool is really super small. And so it's sort of like this, it's a longer process with this giant series. And the group that I'm distributing it to for the prior to publishing is very small. And so I can't really get that big broad spectrum and putting it out to, 1,000 people on, on a rural road or a digital thing. It's sort of like something that I have my subscribers on, Substack. I have readers that are sort of like I don't even know if they read, I guess they read me on X, but then I have the book itself is its own medium, and it's kind of like I don't let the beams cross until it's released.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got to deal with that internet ecosystem.
Well, that's if I put it out there and they're like, what if it's not in the form I want it in? And I have seen that where I have a writer that I work with, and he had put it out there. Well, the fans didn't like something that happened, or they were like, well, this isn't really what it's supposed to be like. Well, he got caught up in the fandom of it, started trying to change it, but then it changes the story so much and it starts to escape from them. I don't know how to say it. Like if you get everybody involved with it, you're not writing the story anymore. You're writing for your fans. And that's an awesome thing to do, but it can also mean that your story may not be true to itself. It may change up too much.
Yeah, I hear you. Too many hands in the pie.
Yeah. Well, there's the tyranny of popularity also. You have people you love and they're enjoying your book and they say, no, you need to write it this way. And I actually had one of my beta readers, and it's the only time I've ever done this. She came up and she said, you need to write it this way. You do this thing. And I was like, I understand why you're wanting me to change it, but there's a future event that has to take place. And she's not going to do what you're telling her to do. She's not going to do that thing. You're seeing a different outcome. I have to make sure that she stays true to this ending of the book. And so this has to happen. And after the beta reader got further into the series, then she was actually okay with it. She never had a fit over it or anything like that, but she expected a certain outcome of a particular interaction, and she didn't get it. And she was just sure that would spoil the story, as it was in her mind. The problem was the story ending as she thought what's going to be in her mind is not the one that's coming.
Interesting. Keeping it a secret. That's good though. It's interesting talking all this art, because one of the things that kind of prompted me to even bring up this topic, this discussion, is not only sort of exploring and always challenging my own methodologies of crafting the next story, but particularly a book that ended up in my mail that I forgot necessarily when I even ordered it, but when you order these older books, they always take longer to get to your door. And this one was Percy LeBach, The Craft of Fiction. Have either of you read it before or heard of it?
I have heard of it. I have not read it.
Yes.
What year is it from?
The one that I got is from the 50s, but it was initially produced in the 1920s. And what was interesting about this book is the entire thing is essentially a argument written in the 1920s, I believe it was 1921, why novels, as in, fiction novels, much like the things you, our gentleman and lady here craft, should be considered art or high art. Because even in the 1920s, it was considered more so as like a form of simple mass entertainment and nothing like we kind of see it today. The idea of crafting a book with show, don't tell, and all these interesting methodologies that come to be was considered foreign, because that's that stuff that you know, that's the sort of critical eye you have for higher forms of art like poetry or paintings and portraits and things of that nature, you know. So this sort of prompted me to wonder, how does my fellow writer approach the craft of fiction and sort of find that or fine tune their pen, you know. So this is a book I would suggest people to check out, The Craft of Fiction, because it covers all the things we sort of take for granted today, making an argument for them for those who would otherwise just sort of sneer at this, like I guess a lot like how people saw, and many do see, comic books today as sort of that mass produced form of disposable media.
Well, and this brings up an important point that actually I touched on last week about groundwood or pulp paper. The reason pulp fiction was called what it was is because they made a disposable book for mass media. They didn't put the work into it of having the marbled end pieces and the painted, inner papers. They didn't have paper that would last. Instead, they put in there the most disposable form of paper. And that's the reason why pulp fiction falls apart in your hands. It was cheaply produced for the masses. But some of those stories have turned out to be some of the greatest stories that we have in American novelization, notably Westerns, Louis L'Amour and others. Owen Wister's The Virginian actually started out as a pulp fiction, and has said it becomes the foundational piece for a genre. So, what one man would consider to be disposable or mass media turns out to be an art form unto itself. And is the reason why I've said, I'm going to continue to print my books on cream stock instead of groundwood, because I want it to last. I want it to last for hundreds of years. Maybe what if it's the only thing that,
Yeah.
survives the bomb or something? And so we have to think of ourselves, even if you're writing just for yourself, just for your friends, it's okay to say, hey, this is just purely entertainment. I want people to have a wonderful time and just forget about it later. And I don't care if they see it in 500 years. What if they do see it in 500 years? Make sure that you love it enough that if somebody says, this is what remains of America.
Yeah.
In Glory Milking Station, whatever it is. What are
Oh,
they going to?
gosh.
Yeah, I know. So we want to make sure that we have our best work out there, that we have the thing that, even if it's for just your friends and family, it may be what survives. It will definitely survive you. I have picked up books that probably had a run of maybe 50 apiece that are older books. And I love older books. I've got a huge collection over next door. And the ones that I love the most are ones that seem to be very obscure, that may not have, usually some poetry or some sort of, usually the what I call romantic idealizations from the mid 1800s. They're fascinating to read. They're a time capsule in of themselves, and they were written and probably forgotten about by most people. But I have the book. It survived. It survived everything else. And a person whose name is only known to me from what is on the front of that book, I can't even find them on the internet because these books are so obscure. But it survives, and that to me is an amazing thing. And the fact that they're still there has inspired me that if, I may not achieve popularity in my lifetime, I feel like I've achieved a certain amount of success and I'm very happy with that. But if my book, somebody finds it later and they read it and they go, this is amazing, this is fast, I see something I didn't see before, then I would consider that a joy, because I know that I tried to put my very best into it. So even when it's just mass media, even when it's just entertainment, make sure that it's the best thing you've got, because you never know when it may become representative of an entirely new genre.
Very true. Very true. That's actually one of the reasons why I've been researching and will soon take up, once I actually have free time to take on a new hobby, book binding, to start repairing some of the old books I have.
Oh, that'd be so much fun.
Very much so. But Black Knight, you were going to say something?
No. I was looking at a file, but I couldn't find any.
All right.
Yeah. So.
Yes. But you wanted to share one of your poems today, I believe, correct?
I did. It's one of the newer ones that I published. It's one of the hope seeker um, poetic schemes, which you know is a combination of haiku, tanka, and simple three piece poem. And this one I wrote about the
Mm-hmm.
fantasy world of called the Winding Road and Wind of Colonization, and the three main characters in it, which is yeah, it's a really short one. It's almost like um, a combination of modified haiku and tanka poems
Mm-hmm.
with a rhyme and verse. So, uh, for those who do not know the characters, there are three of them. The childhood friends. One of them is an elf. The other one is a dwarf, and the third one is a fairy. So all of these um, poems they start with a quotation from the moral officer handbook. It doesn't have to, but I do it uh, because I want to. So the moral officers say, the greater the villain vanished, the less lasting the peace. Fine or of human born, fury is noble elf blood. To protect is his drive relentless. A dwarf his brother sworn. Fail Baldaran never would. His fury divine shields kindliness. A verse of fairy born, Nifa rhymes against falsehood. Reforge her kin and culture ageless. As I said, it's a really short one. So
Um,
Nice, nice. Now, how often do you write your poetry?
uh it's different.
Yeah.
I it depends. It's um as I mentioned before, it's in most cases I have to have the specific energy. You know,
Okay.
I have to feel it because it's for me writing poetry is extremely hard. Even
Mm.
these days, like it's like
mhm.
it takes um, it takes a lot from me, and it takes it's like it's a long process.
Oh, all right, all right.
So as uh, you mentioned in the beginning of of the stream is
Yeah.
snow, and you have to be in the right frame of mind, and sometimes you need like some music and stuff. So uh,
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to get yourself in the mood.
yeah,
Get the writing juices flowing. Yeah, I deal with that from time to time. At times you got to force it. But you know that's sort of kind of where the art also lies. It's not only in the craft, which is where, you know, we refine our raw material, but also the art. Essentially, what schools of thought of literature do we subscribe to, and which authors do we read, and do we not necessarily mimic, but look up to enough to maybe borrow or steal a few of their methodologies. You know, like I do pull a lot from a mixture of, I guess, what I would say the science fiction pulps as
Mhm.
well as the old school safari stories, which are true tales
Ooh.
written by safari hunters who usually hunt down man eaters or rogue animals who go about harming people in the wilder parts of our world. I I say I pull from those because that's what I read a lot of. That's what I find myself gravitating toward in general, and I do see some of these similar writing styles of these hunters sort of bleed into my own writing for good and bad, because a lot of it is on the drier side. Um, I suppose Hemingway would like it a bit, but
Yeah.
I do like to add a bit of purple into my stories to sort of, I guess what I'd say, tap into the emotion more, and instead of just the senses, if you will.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, what are some of your guys's sort of writers that you both consume and maybe borrow from, look up towards, study the methodologies of, and what sort of, let's say, school of thought do you subscribe to when it comes to writing? Why don't we start off
Who's
with
going?
you, Black Knight?
Well, I think I shared uh, most of it, if not all, in previous streams. But my the main goal that they have is to write um, inspirational works, and have a balance between a crucial balance between show and tell, because I cannot like I cannot stand this obsession with, oh, you just have to show, you don't have to tell, blah blah blah.
Yeah, we're
uh,
storytellers. We're storytellers. We tell.
yes, but
Not
I mean, you've gotta like, when you try to unscrew a screw, you use a screwdriver, you don't use a hammer,
hmm
right? That's like, you use the appropriate tools for the job. um so yeah, that's y-
Mm-hmm.
otherwise it's not gonna work. I mean, it's going to work to a degree, but it's not going to be uh it's 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 not going to be what I want to achieve. So
And
that's the essence. Yeah.
who are some influential authors in your
Mm.
life?
Mm. Well, I could mention the usual suspects, but I love to um, I love the works of uh, Rafael Sabatini and Jules Verne too. That's apart from Tolkien, but and Asimov. Um, but you 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 probably know that because I've babbled about them a bit too much in the past already. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What favorite stories? How about we get into detail? Tell us some of the stories that sort of inspired you.
I think I talked about that too, but
We'll talk about it again, man. It's a new stream. We got 93 streams, man. We talk about it a lot.
yeah.
yeah, it's probably the one of the most influential is that fairy tale um,
Is it
about
Baba Yaga?
no, yeah, it involves Baba Yaga, but it's about Vasilisa.
Mm-hmm.
That's a story which, so probably one of my earliest inspirations. It's this story about Vasilisa the Beautiful, which is um, really old. fairy tale, very very old, and some of the scholars mentioned that it might have been um, not originally. Some of the details in it might have not be been originally Slavic. They
Hmm.
might have been translated from Sarmatians and also uh, some of the really old tribes of the steppes. It's a story which is has some macabre details about skulls with glowing eyes and stuff. So that's yeah. It's I think I mentioned it before. Mm,
Yeah, some streams ago, I remember you
yeah,
talking about it.
yeah, yeah.
It's definitely been a little while
So
though.
it's a thing that really infatuated me. This one because had it described parts of nature as like most nature as like anthropomorphized beings, uh,
Hmm.
and you also had a lot of interaction between them, and it really gave the feel to the reader that the different parts of nature are they are they're they are one whole, but they are also separate, and they have their own goals and stuff. Let's say the different winds and the rain and the waters and the rivers and the trees and the earth and the day and the night and everything else. It was really really fascinating, and I think I may have like at one point I may have sought after like all the different versions that I could find of this one, and I told you one of them, one of the versions, but they that's where that thing the lost in translation uh, point happens because like some of the translated versions had uh, very like not even the core aspects of the story were saved, and they had like some um, other aspects that weren't their way in. Things were deleted, removed. Uh, it's and I think I found like a very modern translation, reworded for the modern audience, which is absolutely it's an absolute shit. It's no longer a fairy tale. It's an exercise of political correctness.
Yes, and I heard that's what they might be doing with the new Odyssey movie coming out.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, but Snow, with our remaining time, should I talk about some of the influences on your writing, the authors and the stories?
Well, yeah, I guess you could. I think that we don't talk about poetry. I actually have poetry that I've written a lot of it. And if you ever want to hear it, let me know. Because but I mean, I can read it too. I didn't know you wanted poems, or I would have written one. Would have read you one. But with my poetry, I think that because it was so influential for me as a writer, Rupert Brooke, who is I've been so great a lover, is his. I've actually got two examples of these. So we have Rupert Brooks, who is the romantic. He has lush flowing lines that actually lead you to there's a rhythm to breathing that comes with poetry, and there's a reason why some things sound romantic, and it's because of the way the phrases work. And then there's the more martial poetry, which is based on Homeric work. Hector at the Gate, which I've forgotten which, or Hector at the Bridge. Oh, who is it, the writer of that? Samuel Coleman, to a certain extent, on the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Those are more chopped. The phrasing is more direct. It actually has a feel that is so different that when you were writing these, it's like a genre of music. It's like the difference between rap and classical. And so we have genres of poetry themselves. Martial poetry with the step is a feat, and then you have romantic poetry, which is the phrasing itself and how it flows. And so, if you want it, if you're okay with me actually reading, I can give you 2 short examples of each.
Sure.
Okay, cool. So we'll go ahead and we'll start with let me go ahead and open that up. One that I wrote that's actually at the head of mine. Wrote it several. So I'll not go down without a fight. And actually, so this is the more martial style because it has a very direct approach. And I said both writers are the same. It's me, but at the same time they have a different phrasing. Now the sleeping eyes awaken, startled by the brutish boot, as the Caesar steps, ascending on the tongues of critics mute. Thus the lash of tyrants ever starts so soft of falsehoods made, till the whip of brazen boldness on the back of truth is laid. Other hands may meekly tremble, other eyes may turn their sight. God help me face the foe, I'll not go down without a fight. Heart unfettered, lifts the banner, liberty lives in the light. Freedom dies when darkness wins, I'll not go down without a fight. Let me grasp the lash with laughter, let my spirit mock the night. Thus to tyrants always sing, I'll not go down without a fight. Now, the phrasing on that is so different than the next one that we're going to read, which is actually from Watcher the Damned. And once again, is one I wrote separately, but the Watcher himself is a poet, but he is actually, he's a man who kills people for a living, but he is a romantic poet. And as a result, he has an entirely different phrasing to his piece. He has plenty of things to do that are martial and style. He doesn't want to write about that. He wants to write about romance. As a result, his voice is completely different. And this is Golden Moon from the first book. And he continues to write poetry throughout the book series. So we actually have poetry that was written originally for the book itself and for the series. And then we have others that I've written earlier that actually found a home in the book itself. And this is Golden Moon. And notice that when we do the phrasing between I'll not go down without a fight and this one, that there is a completely different flow to the phrasing. Shine, golden moon. In the warmth of your splendor, I recall paradise. So rise. When the moon is a golden ember in the heat of a summer night, I remember the lies you told me in the moon's golden light. And your hands were the touch of velvet, and your voice was the song of dreams, and your eyes were the light of midnight in the moon's golden gleams. Warm were the lips I gave you, and you took the flower of this. Your lips next to mine turned all of the world the gold of a summer's kiss. I can never forget the magic, though the dream ended all too soon. I remember the love I gave you by the light of the golden moon. There's an art to this poetry that has a completely different feel. And even though the rhythms can be somewhat similar in the rhyming pattern, it's the arc of the words themselves and the sound of the words. Each word is meant to be a smoother sound. And it actually has to do with alliteration in this one more. There's more alliteration in this. And so it actually makes the phrasing flow more. And this is in the style of Rupert Brooke, that he has this warm, flowing style. And if you haven't had a chance to read Coleman for Rime of the Ancient Mariner, for martial poetry, I would strongly suggest you do, because I think you'll love it. And that's for epic poetry. But if you want something flowing and lush, you need to go to Rupert Brooke, because he has that Edwardian, I believe we're talking about from the Victorian to Edwardian era for Rupert Brooke. And he has that flow of style that really makes this, it's almost sings. And I think that us knowing those different poetic styles and how to write them, also which ones speak to us, because poetry is literally a song of words, and you have to let it be what it is. You have to write what is in you. Don't try to force it into a particular form or anything. Just write what you know and what you have in your heart. Reading different poets will help you. Poetry is extraordinarily necessary in in a culture. It has been with us for millennia. And when I read the beautiful poetry of Black Knight, and I see, geez, he's doing these tankas that are so intricate because they're of Japanese poetry, and we look back on all of the cultures that have had poetry. We need to keep poetry alive and keep it going because it is essential to civilization and art.
Wow, nice piece there.
Yeah.
Well said. That's a
Yeah.
great punctuation. Because we're just about time to wrap it all up. So we'll go ahead. Black Knight, why don't you go ahead and tell people where they can find you and share any last thoughts you may have on our subject matter tonight.
Well, as you know, I am not that huge of a poet. I try.
You are too.
I learn more and more new schemes um, yeah, that's how should I put it? It's indeed quite important to have all of this, not just the stories, but
Mhm.
the poems too. You need to have them preserved, and you need to create more. So um, this is, I mean, you cannot create beauty without having beauty to be inspired from.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if you're surrounded by depression inducing ugliness, it's quite hard to create more new beauty. It's really hard. It's not impossible, but it's quite hard. Well, as for where you can find me on Amazon. You can grab any of my published Star Shutter books there from the series. You can also find my fantasy, single fantasy published book, Lord of the Bones there, and my two story collections,
Yeah.
also set in the Star Shattered universe, A Mandate to Sword and Dragon, and The Blood of Tyrants.
Nice.
Or you could go to my Substack
Yay.
and read the newest stuff that I have, which is substack.com, The Black Knight.
There we go. Yeah, we got some links down below. All right, Snow, what are some final thoughts if you have any? Because you did a pretty good piece there. And where can people find you?
Well, first of all, you can find me at watcherofthedam.com, which I'm very excited to say is still up because I went up today and it was gone. I mean, it was gone. Turned out that my card, I'd switched over and it didn't actually put it in there, but GoDaddy didn't send me for whatever reason that didn't come in. And I was like, oh my gosh, my site is down. So I called GoDaddy and I had the most wonderful people help me. And I'm like, thank you, GoDaddy. So yes, you can go to watcherofthedam.com where it's all right there. I'm so happy to see it. Yay. Good job keeping my website open. Hurrah. Being an author is hard and you have to keep all these other things going as well. You can also find me. And of course, the books are there for Amazon. As well as other fine bookstores, and you can link directly to there. You can actually buy them through the website even if you wanted to, but go to Amazon and click on it. You'll find it at Watcher the Damned or watcherthedam.com. You can also find my poetry on my Substack under R.H. Snow's Deep Thoughts from the Double White of Doom. And I have all of my poetry there and also my essays and things, some of it which is related to the book and others is just my free flow poetry and writing. And of course, you can find me on X where I have a pretty decent little following. And I'm very happy to interact with my readers there. I've had a wonderful time with them. So, and I also you can connect with me on Substack as well. We do have direct messages there as well. So thank you so much, though, all of you out there for reading us and letting us talk to you. You're fantastic, and I've just loved this podcast. It's amazing the weird things that we do every week. I'm like, I don't know what's happening next, but it's fun. It's going to be awesome. So
it always is.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's always fun here on the podcast, everybody. Always come back. Join us next week. If you're watching this on the replay, give it a like. Leave a comment down below. Let the world know we exist. We enjoy you stopping by, but we got to head out, everybody.